a boy attends a special ceremony to receive a skill from the goddess. He kneels before a priest for the oracle's ritual. Then, the priest begins to announce the skill bestowed upon him. The boy's eyes widen upon hearing his skill is called tame. From behind, 2 other boys mock him for getting an animal taming skill. An older man, his father, yells in outrage at the result. A woman beside him tries to calm him down. His father angrily declares him unworthy of the Albion family. The priest, however, encourages the kneeling boy not to lose heart. With his head bowed, the boy suddenly recalls everything. He realizes he is Lest Albion, a character from a game he once played. A grim smile crosses his face as he understands he's a villain, not the hero. He knows this character is fated to be killed by the Demon King's army. As he walks away, he remembers that his character dies in every single rout. Lest pauses for a moment, trying to process his situation. His eyes narrow, realizing everything is caused by his unique ability. While tame seems to be a simple livestock skill, his is special. It's so powerful that it can even control immense, demonic beasts. This overwhelming power leads to his corruption and persecution. Ultimately, his strength gets him targeted and killed by the Demon King's forces. Les steels himself, determined to find a way to avoid his inevitable death flag. Contemplating what actions he must take to defy his grim fate, then resolves to use his game knowledge to become impossibly strong. A year before the story begins, he sits at a tense family dinner, thinking about the mountain of tasks ahead to ensure his survival. Across the table, his twin brothers, Edward and Sidward, report their training progress. Their father, Gad Albion, sternly expresses his high expectations for them, while their mother, Gila, smiles proudly at her son's ambition. Les simply eats, ignoring his brother's ridicule about his useless skill. The twins continue their taunts, suggesting he become a carriage driver. His father then coldly dismisses him, saying he has no interest in his affairs. Afterward, the brothers mockingly tell him to go for a walk and tame a dog. Having heard enough, Les quietly excuses himself from the dinner table. A week after regaining his memories, he wanders outside, ensuring he's alone. He tries to summon a status window from the game, but nothing happens. Since he can't check his ability values, he resorts to physical training. He concludes that a level-up system must exist by defeating monsters. As a rule, he can only use his tame skill on monsters he personally defeats. Therefore, he must raise his stats, a process he recalls as. He remembers the game allowed choosing one of 5 stats to improve daily via this system. Les realizes this training allows growth without fighting, but must be done once daily at night. He concludes that by completing every training regimen, he can become strong at an astonishing speed. Next, turning to magic, he summons a small spark and wonders how to begin training it. Thanks to his memories of living as Les, he finds he can smoothly perform the magic training. As he manifests magic, he notes his physique is far superior to his previous lives. He recalls how useless the tame skill was in the game, questioning the original Les' despair. Walking through a garden, he resolves to perform the final prayer, training back in his room. Suddenly, a voice calls out his name from behind, causing him to turn. His twin brothers approach, mockingly asking if he has managed to tame a dog yet. Edward, a great sword user, smirks, stating they are heading off to sword practice. Likewise, Sidward, a duel wielder, taunts Les for losing his right to such lessons. Les glares silently at his bothersome siblings, as 2 maids watch the confrontation from afar. Just then, an unfamiliar voice calls out to the brothers, drawing Les' attention. A woman with long, fair hair appears, shocking the twins as she tells them to get ready. Les stares in utter disbelief, completely stunned by this woman's sudden appearance. The woman declares their training will be strict, dragging a massive monster's corpse behind her. She explains she hunted an earth dragon, and Les realizes she must be his brother's master. This is Elna de Brazel, a genius S-rank adventurer at only 18 years old. Les reels from this revelation, certain that such a character never appeared in the game. While the twins marvel at meeting an S-rank adventurer, Elna examines the massive beast. Les bitterly wonders why he is unable to receive her expert guidance. At that moment, Elna glances back with a piercing gaze. 2 hours later, Les walks towards the family's grand training area. From inside, Elna's voice echoes as she ferociously spars with the twins. Edward and Sidward strain to defend against her overwhelmingly powerful attacks. In a swift motion, Elna disarms both brothers, sending them to the ground. Peeking from behind a pillar, Les is utterly astounded by her strength. Elna chastises the defeated twins, treating them like children and ordering them up. Completely spent, the brothers cry out that they can't continue. Hearing this, Elna calmly declares that the day's training is over. Les listens as his siblings wonder if such brutal training is even necessary. He reflects that while his training boosts his stats, it lacks combat application. The twins depart, discussing a mock battle as they nurse their bruises. Elna sighs, wishing they would train harder given their favorable circumstances. Apparently, she only visits the Albion estate once a month for swordsmanship training. With eyes full of determination, Les resolves not to let this chance escape him. He suddenly steps into the open, causing Elna to turn and question him. As her hair whips around, Les stands before the powerful adventurer. She remarks that she noticed him watching, so Les nervously introduces himself. Elna acknowledges him, asking if he is the Les who received the tame skill. Gathering his courage, Les begins to speak, but she cuts him off. He is utterly stunned, shouting in surprise that she had noticed him. Recovering, he passionately declares his wish to become strong and pleads for her guidance. Elna calmly rejects him, stating his tame skill isn't for combat and he can't handle her training. Despite her refusal, Les grits his teeth, insisting he still wants to get stronger. His unwavering determination gives Elna a moment of pause, her expression unreadable. After some thought, she decides to test him, tossing a training sword onto the ground. With a look of shock, Les quickly picks up the offered blade. Elna then challenges him, questioning if he is truly worth her time. To test him, she immediately launches an attack, their swords clashing in an instant. As their duel begins, she commands him to prove his worth with his own hands. Overwhelmed, Les can only think about how incredibly fast she is. With her hair flowing wildly, she continues her relentless assault. Every single strike she delivers is impossibly powerful, pushing him back. He strains to block her attack, shocked by the sheer weight behind the blow. She maintains an overwhelming pressure, knowing she is already holding back her strength. Pushed to his absolute limit, Les desperately commands himself not to collapse. Noticing his resilience, a small, intrigued smirk appears on Elna's lips. Determined to learn at least one thing, Les prepares a desperate counterswing. However, Elna effortlessly parries his attack, sending his sword flying from his grasp. He continues to fend off her relentless attacks, losing track of time. Finally, Elna overwhelms him, sending him crashing to the ground. Lying defeated, Les realizes he has no strength left in his legs. She lowers her blade, declaring that the test has come to an end. Despite his exhaustion, Les struggles back onto his feet, panting heavily. Looking up at her, he desperately asks for her assessment of his abilities. Elna briefly ponders, her hand on her chin as she considers her verdict. She then bluntly informs him that his performance was completely useless. He looks down, dejected, as she critiques his amateur swordsmanship and weak body. Unmoved, Elna then asks him a direct question: why does he seek strength? Les is momentarily stunned into silence by her unexpected inquiry. She continues, asking if he wants to beat his brothers or has another motive. Finding his voice, Les yells with fierce determination that he wants to overcome his fate. His passionate declaration catches her by surprise, her eyes widening slightly. After a pause, she offers to train him for 30 minutes after her usual lessons. In absolute shock, Les asks if she is truly being serious. She warns she'll quit if he fails, but he bows and thanks her profusely. A massive, triumphant grin spreads across his face as he clenches his fist. Seeing his unrestrained joy, a rare, gentle smile graces Elna's lips. She then gives him a wooden sword, instructing him to train with it for the next month. Elna insists that before anything else, she must teach him how to hold the sword. 2 months later, another intense training session is underway in the estate's courtyard, where the sounds of clashing swords mark the 3rd day of Elna's direct instruction. As Les furiously exchanges a rapid series of strikes with her. With a determined shout, he lunges forward, pressing his attack once more. Elna, however, meets his blade with a confident, almost mocking, grin. Seeing him struggle, she casually asks him what the matter is. She then points out that his movements have become monotonous and easy to read. With a cold look, she declares that her next move will be a thrust. Les stares in disbelief, shocked that she would announce her attack. Just then, a sudden flash of light from an unknown source startles Elna. A magical projectile shaped like a fist then flies right past Les' face. He swiftly dodges the projectile by dropping his sword, stunning Elna with the maneuver. Immediately after, he strikes again, but his wooden sword shatters against her blade. A knowing smile graces Elna's lips as she correctly identifies his move as a feint. She then critiques him, noting his failure was not getting behind her to attack. However, she continues, such a simple pursuit would be useless against her anyway. Les inwardly smirks, thinking that while a pursuit is useless, this art will work. He recalls that arts are just as crucial as skills in Symphonia of Sword and Magic. They are special techniques, ultimate moves that allow the user to surpass their limits. Les recalls that through his training with Elna, he learned one of these arts, a technique he mentally identifies as just a double swing, which drastically increases the speed and power of his blade, an ultimate skill that catches Elna completely by surprise. With a fierce shout, he unleashes the art known as One Flash. The powerful strike rushes towards a wide-eyed Elna, and their swords clash in a brilliant burst of energy. Les maintains his intense gaze, refusing to back down. Elna complements his strike before easily disarming him, sending his sword flying. She then swiftly brings her sword's pommel down on his head. Les clutches his head in pain, cursing his defeat as steam rises. He despairs, realizing the immense power gap between them persists after 2 months. Elna, however, is shocked by his astonishing rate of growth. She muses that while he worked hard, that alone doesn't explain this. She questions why he used One Flash, an art meant for sword masters. She then remarks that learning it would take a talented person a year. A delighted smirk crosses her face as she realizes he learned it in just 2 months. Les confidently suggests they resume, and she agrees with a simple "yeah." She inwardly marvels that she may be nurturing an unbelievable prodigy. Later, while eating, Les reaffirms his name is Les Albion, a villainous noble. He recalls being reincarnated as a villain fated to die in the game he once played, and to avoid that doom, he decided to become the strongest by using his game knowledge. Over the past 2.5 months, he has steadily gained power under his new master. Sipping his drink, he muses that everything is proceeding smoothly so far. Suddenly, his father announces that the second princess, Charlotte, will be visiting their house. Les chokes on his drink, completely stunned by the unexpected news. His brothers look on in confusion, wondering about his sudden outburst. As he dabs his mouth with a napkin, Les panics, wondering why he's hearing that name. He remembers she is one of the main heroines from Charlotte von Finnar, the second princess, and a walking death flag for him. In the game, she was known simply as a flawless, perfect princess. She had a curious and vibrant personality, befriending anyone without prejudice. Blessed with immense talent, she was a character full of justice who fought to protect others. It was that very righteousness that made her unable to forgive Les' villainous acts. Later in the story, Charlotte joins the protagonist to confront a rampaging Les. In the end, he remembers being killed by the demon army after that fight. Les questions this turn of events, as they were never supposed to meet at this stage. His father explains that Elna, who also instructs the royals, praised the Albion swordsmanship. A look of horrified realization flashes across Les' eyes. His brothers, however, excitedly speculate that the princess must be interested in them. His mother excitedly exclaims that this could be their chance to win the royal family's favor. Les, however, is shocked to realize the connection between his master and the princess. He concludes the game's scenario changed because he formed a bond with Elna. With this realization, he deduces that Charlotte is almost certainly looking for him. His brothers misinterpret his demeanor and start teasing him for being at Sundara. 2 weeks later, on the day of the visit, the brothers wait by the grand staircase while Les sits alone. He grits his teeth, thinking that the dreaded day has finally arrived. Sighing, he laments having to meet such a troublesome person, knowing he cannot skip the visit. His brothers suddenly yell at him, ordering him to leave since the princess is clearly there for them. Internally thanking them for the perfect excuse, Les feigns disappointment and agrees to leave. Once outside, he walks along a balcony, planning to practice with his wooden sword to kill time. He then considers that it might be a good opportunity to finally fight some monsters. To maximize his time skill, he must defeat monsters and convert them into subordinates. He thinks about heading to the Forbidden Alls Forest, a monster habitat within the Albion domain. However, he quickly decides against it, deeming it too risky to stand out right now. Meanwhile, inside the mansion, Les' father formally welcomes Princess Charlotte over tea. The princess, a young woman with long, flowing blonde hair, appears poised and graceful. Both of Les' brothers are immediately captivated by her stunning beauty. Their father then asks if it's true she was granted the divine swordswoman's skill. The twins listen in shock, aware that skill surpasses even their older brother's sword saint ability. The twins eagerly lean towards the princess, declaring she must be interested in their amazing selves. In response, Charlotte smiles graciously and requests to see their swordsmanship. Their father then sternly orders the boys to escort Her Highness to the training grounds. After bidding farewell, the group departs, leaving the parents behind in the grand hall. Sometime later at the training grounds, one of the twins lets out a powerful cry. Their wooden swords then collide with immense force, shattering on impact. Undeterred, the other brother roars back as he presses his attack. The two engage in a high-speed sparring match, showcasing their skills. From the sidelines, Charlotte observes with her maid, noting their impressive skills despite their short training time. Pausing their duel, one twin mocks the other's weak reaction, belittling the sheltered princess. He then smirks, suggesting they should demonstrate their prowess in a real battle to hold her interest. Hearing this, Charlotte looks up in surprise, questioning what he means by a real battle. One brother points to the woods, proposing a fight against monsters in the Alps forest, shocking the princess. The twin confidently reassures her, saying the forest is like their garden and he will protect her. Both Charlotte and her maid, Elna, watch the brothers with expressions of deep concern. Elna, in particular, seems to be contemplating the situation with a troubled gaze. To the twins' delight, Elna accepts their offer and asks them to lead the way. With a determined look, Charlotte follows them as they approach the entrance to the dark woods. The party ventures into the ominous forest, walking single file along a narrow path. As they go deeper, one of them comments on how dark it is despite it being daytime. One twin reassures the princess, while the other notes the forest's creepy atmosphere. Charlotte then asks about the other Albion family member from her grade, Lest. Hearing this, the twins pause and share a silent, condescending look. They laughingly explain that Les wouldn't be worthy of the princess's time, so they sent him away. Continuing their mockery, they state that Her Highness would not be interested in a partner with Lest's meager skills. Suddenly, Elna gasps and shouts a warning to the princess as she senses danger. From the woods, a pack of 3 gray wolves emerges, growling menacingly at the party. One twin confidently declares they will handle it, and both brothers charge forward with swords drawn. The two then leap into the fray, engaging the ferocious wolves in combat. Moments later, the brothers stand panting over the bodies of the defeated monsters. Charlotte remarks that their skills weren't what she expected, while Elna suggests it's time to leave. Looking back with a hint of disappointment, the princess asks if they are already done. Elna urges a retreat, explaining the wind has shifted and the atmosphere feels unsettling. Charlotte reluctantly agrees to leave, trusting her maid's intuition. However, the twins call for them to wait, boasting that the real show is about to begin. An intense, crushing pressure suddenly descends upon the group, shocking Charlotte and Elna. From the shadows of the forest, a single, glowing eye stares intently at them. An enormous wolf monster then towers over the entire party, its size truly immense. Elna screams in panic, identifying the creature as a garwolf, a dangerous C-rank monster. The twins are frozen in place, their faces twisted in absolute terror. The garwolf lets out a deafening roar, its sharp fangs on full display. Reacting instantly, Elna leaps in front of the paralyzed brothers, sword at the ready. The beast lunges forward, and Elna struggles to hold back its immense power with her blade. With great effort, she shouts for the twins to get the princess to safety while she holds it off. The brothers, however, remain stunned, stammering in utter disbelief at her order. Elna screams at them to move quickly, her urgency finally snapping them out of their terror. Without another moment's hesitation, they grab the princess and make a desperate retreat into the woods. They run for their lives, their feet pounding against the forest floor. Looking over her shoulder, Charlotte watches the scene unfold with a horrified expression. However, their escape is cut short as another enormous garwolf emerges from the trees, blocking their path. One twin cries out in despair, noting that this new monster is even larger than the last. Seeing no other choice, Charlotte draws her own ornate sword and orders them to prepare to fight back. The brothers protest that it's impossible for them to win against such overwhelming odds. Despite their fear, one twin charges and swings his sword at the approaching beast. The two brothers stand their ground, desperately trying to fend off the massive creature. To his horror, his blade is easily repelled by the monster's tough hide. The garwolf then swings its powerful paw, sending both twins flying through the air. As Charlotte watches in dismay, she realizes she has no choice but to fight the monster herself. With a determined cry, she charges forward to face the giant wolf head-on. Gritting her teeth, she resolves to hold out, confident that someone named Estelle will come to her aid. The garwolf bares its teeth, its glowing eyes fixed on Charlotte. With a powerful swipe of its claws, the beast sends the princess flying backward. As she's thrown, Charlotte feels a gust of wind, questioning if she can use this magic. However, she quickly recalls another power she possesses. Regaining her footing, she declares her intent to use holy magic and begins to chant. Before she can finish, the garwolf looms over her, ready to strike. In a panic, she realizes she won't be able to cast her spell in time. As the monster lunges, she wonders if this is the end. Suddenly, a mysterious figure appears before her, shielding her from the attack. It's a young man, who has positioned himself between her and the beast. The garwolf snarls at the unexpected intruder, its fangs bared. Stunned, Charlotte looks up at her savior and asks for his name. Her rescuer, Lest, glances back and calmly claims to be a mere passerby. The scene then shifts to several minutes earlier, where Lest is training with his wooden sword. In the distance, he spots Charlotte, her maid, and the twin guards heading into the woods. Alarmed, he realizes they are entering the forbidden Arse forest. Cursing the twins' recklessness, Lest immediately sprints after the group. From behind a tree, he worries they might encounter a monster too strong for them. He resolves to follow, knowing his family would be executed if anything happened to the princess. Just then, a loud crash echoes through the woods, confirming his worst fears had come true. Returning to the present, Lest stands guard between the snarling garwolf and Princess Charlotte. He grimaces, thinking how close he just came to getting his family executed. Completely stunned by his sudden appearance, Charlotte once again asks who he is. Meanwhile, Lest internally blames the twin guards' incompetence for creating this mess. As his mind races, he tells her he's just an ordinary person who happened to be passing by. The princess finds this hard to believe, questioning how a commoner could be so calm. Deciding to deal with the immediate threat, Lest tells her they can talk after he defeats the beast. He inwardly assesses the C-rank garwolf, realizing his chances of winning are slim at best. However, he reassures himself that with his game knowledge, he can somehow manage to win. Drawing his sword, Lest steels his resolve and confronts the enormous monster. Without delay, the garwolf swipes at him with its massive, sharp claws. Lest quickly dodges the attack, which pulverizes the ground where he just stood. He continues to deftly weave through the monster's relentless barrage of swipes. While evading, Lest observes the beast's surprisingly quick movements. The garwolf then launches a ranged attack, forcing Lest to dodge a series of wind blades. Lest notes that it's a very powerful monster, well balanced in offense and defense. But he declares he knows all its attack patterns as he leaps up to strike its throat. The garwolf's eye widens in surprise as it lets out a pained sound. With a confident smirk, Lest reveals that he knows every move the beast will make. Charlotte watches from a safe distance, utterly speechless and unable to believe her eyes. Lest notes his stats are unchanged, yet he steadily damages the garwolf. From afar, Charlotte watches in disbelief, wondering who this boy could possibly be. Shifting to a flashback, a younger Charlotte is praised by her companion, Elna, for her efforts, as Elna expresses concern that the title of Holy Sword Princess is weighing on her. Elna clarifies that besides swordsmanship and magic, there are people with other excellent skills, prompting a determined Charlotte to declare that she will not be defeated, which brings a gentle smile to Elna's face. However, Elna adds that Charlotte's rivals won't be limited to those with top-tier skills, explaining that some achieve equal power through sheer talent and relentless effort. Charlotte then recalls a previous conversation, earning a nod of approval from Elna, who then mentions an interesting boy from the Albion family who is Charlotte's age, leaving the young princess utterly surprised and at a loss for words. Seeing Elna laugh so freely for the first time, Charlotte is taken aback, before Elna suddenly has an idea, suggesting that Charlotte should meet this boy for some good stimulation. Returning to the present, Charlotte stands in the forest, recalling Elna's words about the Albion boy. Suddenly she clutches her chest as a realization dawns on her, and she finally understands that the mysterious swordsman is Lest Albion, the very boy who possesses the supposed failure skill, time, yet wields a level of power that defies all expectations. Charlotte realizes with a blush that Elna had been talking about Lest all along. Back in the clearing, the garwolf snarls and circles Lest, who remains calm. The massive beast suddenly roars, its eyes glowing with fury. It glares down at Lest, seemingly perplexed by the boy's surprising durability. Lest smirks, noting internally that his magic is just about depleted. With a hardened gaze, he decides that now is his only chance to attack. The garwolf's eye widens, sensing a change in its opponent's demeanor. Before it can react, Lest dashes forward, intercepting the beast. Watching from the side, Charlotte lets out a gasp of surprise. Lest slides underneath the monster, preparing to thrust his sword upwards. With a tremendous battle cry, he puts all his remaining strength into the attack. He then drives his blade skyward with incredible force. A brilliant flash of light erupts as the sword slices into the garwolf. The blade cuts deep into the monster's chest, and continues its upward trajectory with unstoppable momentum. The garwolf is thrown back by the powerful strike, crashing against the forest trees. Lest stands panting, having used the last of his energy on that final blow. Lying amidst the splintered wood, the beast twitches before falling silent. Charlotte stares in utter disbelief at the unbelievable scene before her. Les closes his eyes and exhales, quietly declaring his victory. Charlotte congratulates Les on his victory, while he nervously sweats beside her. However, his eyes narrow as he thinks that it's too early to celebrate. A smirk appears on his face as he considers his unique ability, Game Time. Just as he thinks the real fight is starting, the downed Garwolf's eye snaps open. Suddenly, the monster's entire body dissolves into particles of light and vanishes. The scene reverts to a moment ago, with Charlotte once again congratulating Les. This time, Les asks if she is unharmed, and she credits him for her safety. Les reacts with shock, questioning how she knows his name. She smiles warmly, revealing that she also received a wooden sword from Elna. She then formally introduces herself as Princess Charlotte, his fellow disciple. Bowing graciously, Charlotte thanks him for his protection and praises his courage. She follows up with a dazzling smile, expressing her sincere gratitude once more. Les is completely taken aback, blushing furiously at her radiant expression. In a fluster, he apologizes and excuses himself to go check on the Garwolf. Before leaving, he asks Charlotte to tend to his injured brothers. He then walks away from the group, heading back into the forest. Les approaches the still body of the enormous Garwolf, which lies amongst the trees. He muses to himself that so far, everything has gone according to plan. Looking down at the creature, he wonders if it will show him the will he expects. A system message suddenly appears, stating the Garwolf is now interested in its victor. A new system message appears, asking if Les wants to tame the Garwolf. An ecstatic grin spreads across Les' face as he realizes he can finally tame it. Without hesitation, he takes a firm step forward. He then stands directly before the massive, defeated creature. Addressing the beast by name, Les speaks to the downed Garwolf. He places a hand on its snout, asking it to become his very first tamed monster. Instantly, light envelopes him as system messages announce the taming was successful and he has acquired wind magic. Another message pops up, rewarding him with a new skill, otherworldly dwelling, for his first successful tame. He feels a surge of magical power flowing into his body, a wild smile on his face. Les reflects on how his taming ability allows him to acquire a monster's strength. He recalls the Garwolf using its unique wind magic during their fight, the very skill he now possesses. Furthermore, he remembers his rigorous training with Elna, which has made him different from the original Les. With his hand on the monster, he resolves to grow stronger by taming creatures. A confident smirk appears as he realizes he has a path to becoming the strongest. However, he considers that saying Garwolf every time is a bit too long. He suggests shortening its name to Gal, and the beast barks happily in agreement. With a gentle smile, Les declares that the name is now decided. Glancing back towards the others, he decides to keep Gal's existence a secret for now. Subsequently, he activates Otherworldly Dwelling, opening a portal to a vast landscape. Gal cheerfully enters the portal while Les watches on. As the portal closes, Les watches with a satisfied smile. Suddenly, his attention is caught by the sound of someone calling for the young lady. He turns to see a maid rushing through the forest toward Estelle and a fallen Garwolf. Estelle explains that another Garwolf appeared, but they managed to repel it. Shocked to hear of another beast, the maid expresses her relief that Estelle is unharmed. Meanwhile, the two defeated knights on the ground wonder who fought the creature. Estelle turns away with a smile, clarifying that someone else protected her. Her gaze lands squarely on Les, who stands seriously among the trees. As the maid spots him, Estelle calmly introduces him as Les from the Albion family. Les notices the maid's suspicious glare as Estelle explains that he saved her. Internally, the maid questions how he could defeat a Garwolf faster than she could. The maid also recalls he only has the tame skill, but Estelle insists she saw it with her own eyes. With a brilliant smile, Estelle looks to Les for confirmation. Caught in the moment, Les closes his eyes and reluctantly agrees. He then addresses Estelle, stating he somehow repelled the dangerous monster. Both the maid and Estelle bowed deeply, expressing their immense gratitude. Just then, the maid questions how he knew Estelle's name when they hadn't been introduced. Les flinches, caught completely off guard by her astute observation. Before he can answer, Estelle cheerfully explains that she heard the maid calling her name earlier. Breathing a sigh of relief, Les reminds himself to be more careful around game characters in the future. Les decides it's time to leave the forest, carrying one unconscious knight as the maid carries the other. Upon their return to the mansion, panicked servants rush out, asking what happened. Carrying the injured man, Les immediately requests treatment for the knights. Just then, an older man appears, shocked to see his injured son, Charlot. Inside a lavish room, the two knights are laid on a sofa as the man glares at Les. The furious man confronts Les directly, demanding to know if this was his doing. He then angrily questions why Lest is the only one who appears completely unharmed. With an intense stare, he demands a convincing explanation for the situation. However, Estelle steps in before Lest can answer, declaring that he has done nothing wrong. She looks directly at the man, proclaiming that Lest is the one who saved her life. Her declaration leaves the man utterly speechless and wide-eyed with shock. At that moment, the maid interjects, stating she also requires an explanation. She recounts how she and Estelle were led to Al's forest, where they encountered a garwolf. Enraged, the man demands to know why they were sent alone into such a dangerous forest. He furiously clarifies that he never gave permission for such a reckless act. The maid then holds him accountable, stating the responsibility is his as head of the household. Faced with this accusation, the man is rendered speechless and unable to respond. Estelle then closes her eyes and lets out a quiet sigh. She intervenes, stating that she won't place all the blame on him. The man, still processing everything, turns to Lest and asks if he really defeated a garwolf alone. Estelle smiles radiantly, reiterating that Lest is the one who saved her life. However, Lest interrupts, saying they should drop the matter for now. The older man remains in shock, still questioning if Lest really defeated a garwolf alone. Estelle then asks to be shown to a room where she can rest. As a maid leads her away, Estelle thanks everyone and says her goodbyes for now. She then turns back to Lest, asking to greet him properly later on. The man trembles slightly as he watches Estelle and the maid depart. Lest casts a quick, sharp glance from the corner of his eye. In disbelief, the man mutters that there's no way this brat could have defeated a garwolf. Lest's eyes narrow, though he says nothing in response. That night, with the night staying over, Lest lies in bed, unable to sleep. He gets up and wanders out onto a large, ornate balcony. Leaning against the railing, Lest looks out at the starry night sky. Suddenly, Estelle's voice calls his name, startling him from his thoughts. She approaches him on the balcony, holding a small lantern. Lest turns to face her, a slightly surprised expression on his face. She notes their strange meeting and asks if they could talk, to which Lest agrees. Estelle immediately bows deeply, formally thanking him for saving her life. Lest smiles gently, replying that her safety is what matters most. She looks down with a warm smile, thinking to herself how kind Lest is. Estelle gazes at Lest, remarking that his swordsmanship against the garwolf was eye-opening. However, they both humbly deflect the praise, each giving the other credit for their success. Lest then jokes that they've gotten into a competition of who can be more humble, making Estelle giggle. Suddenly, Estelle's expression grows serious as she falls silent for a moment. Turning away, she states that this incident made her realize how much she still has to learn. With a look of determination in her eyes, she says that's why she has made a decision. She then faces Lest again, a quiet smile on her face as he waits for her to continue. Lest listens intently, his posture still and attentive. His eyes suddenly widen in shock as he realizes what might be happening. A vision of Charlotte seemingly about to confess flashes through his mind. As Estelle begins to speak, asking him a question, Lest braces himself. He panics internally, blushing as he thinks this must be a confession. To his surprise, she bows her head and asks if he will become her sword friend. Lest is utterly baffled by the unfamiliar term, muttering it in confusion. Looking down shyly, Estelle explains it means a friend who shares the same path of the sword. She then looks up with bright eyes, adding that it means a rival to compete against. Estelle continues, admitting her previous goal, Elna, was too far ahead for her to chase. In contrast, she notes that Lest is her age and just one step ahead, making him an ideal partner. With a passionate plea, she asks him to be her rival and sword friend so they can improve together. Lest's eyes narrow slightly as he internally weighs his desire to avoid the main characters. Estelle waits with a determined, flustered expression as Lest considers her surprising request. After a moment of thought, Lest smirks slightly as he comes to a decision. He formally accepts her offer to be sword friends, which seems to surprise her. Upon hearing his answer, Estelle breaks into a brilliant, joyous smile and says his name. She then asks him to call her Charo, leaving Lest flustered by the sudden informality. Charo insists, declaring she doesn't care what others think, and Lest recalls her stubborn nature. With a charming smile, Lest relents and agrees to call her Charo. Charo's face lights up once again as she happily accepts his agreement. On the starlit balcony, the two formally establish their new partnership as rivals. The next day, Charo cheerfully says goodbye, looking forward to their future sword friend activities. Lest and his family see her off, with Duke Albion expressing what an honor it is. A stylized image shows Charo ready with her sword, with Lest standing confidently behind her. Soon after, Charo's carriage departs from the estate on its way back to the capital. Back inside, Duke Albion grits his teeth, expressing a deep sense of unease about Lest. He suddenly whirls around, yelling at his two older sons for their reckless actions. However, his wife steps forward, interrupting to say that he is mistaken. She argues that while they endangered Charlotte, they did so to protect her from his own poor decision. Ignoring her, the Duke points at Lest, demanding he take responsibility for gaining Charlotte's interest. Lest looks completely baffled, wondering what his father is talking about. One of his brothers then steps in to defend him, telling their father that he is the one at fault. His brother continues to argue with the Duke, insisting that he has it all wrong. Lest listens intently as his brother reveals they intentionally weakened the monster before Lest arrived. The Duke's eyes widen as he clenches his fist, realizing everything finally makes sense. Meanwhile, Lest looks on with pure exasperation, thinking they're all being ridiculous. A flashback reveals the two brothers struggling to damage the massive garwolf in the forest. However, Lest cuts in, telling his yelling father that he was the one who actually defeated the beast. He stares down his father with an unyielding gaze, declaring that it is the simple truth. The Duke is rendered speechless by his youngest son's audacious claim. Later, outside, the Duke challenges Lest to prove his strength, and Lest calmly accepts. The Duke then declares that Lest must duel and defeat both Ed and Sid at the same time. Lest's eyes narrow slightly, contemplating the prospect of facing two opponents at once. With a stern look, the Duke states that if Lest's claim is true, this should be an easy task. The twins eagerly agree, vowing to punish their insolent little brother. A look of understanding dawns on Lest's face as he realizes the purpose of this duel. He knows that his brothers, who couldn't use their full power against the wolf, are formidable. Lest reflects that if he was evenly matched with one, he shouldn't be able to win against two. A text panel declares that such logic was only true until yesterday. Standing before them, Lest unleashes a massive, shadowy aura in the shape of a wolf. He thinks to himself that old reasoning no longer applies to him now. One of his brothers stares in wide-eyed shock, completely terrified by the immense power. The other twin also has a look of pure dread on his face. Even the Duke stares in stunned silence, a bead of sweat running down his temple. In contrast, Lest simply smirks and calmly declares that he accepts the duel. His brothers immediately jump back, taking defensive stances against the overwhelming pressure. With a confident glint in his eye, Lest once again confirms he accepts their challenge. The twins exchange a bewildered glance, completely baffled by this turn of events. Suddenly, a woman's voice calls out, finding the situation amusing as she steps into view. The newcomer, a long-haired woman, formally offers to serve as the witness for the duel. Lest turns his head, his own composure broken by her unexpected arrival. His brothers are just as stunned, shouting out in recognition of their master. The Duke then asks the woman, Elna, why she's here, and she explains she heard about the garwolf attack. She smiles, mentioning that she was sad Shero went missing but is happy to be present for this. Looking at the three brothers, Elna states it's only fitting for her to oversee a duel between her students. The Duke shouts in confusion, asking why three are involved when he only meant Ed and Sid. Elna calmly clarifies that at Lest's own strong request, she has been personally teaching him. At this news, the twins can only gasp in utter disbelief. Furious, the Duke yells at Elna, demanding to know why he was never informed of this. She coolly replies that it was a private matter, and her time with Lest was minimal. Her expression then grows serious as she prepares to add another point. Elna admits that despite her personal training, she doesn't believe Lest can defeat both brothers at once. Elna smirks, wondering aloud where Lest's confidence is coming from. Lest gazes back at her, stating that he simply has to find out for himself. Hearing this, the Duke accepts the situation and offers to act as the official witness. Lest internally agrees with Elna's assessment that he can't win with his current strength alone. However, he knows Elna has watched him and understands he wouldn't make such a boast without a reason. Elna's eye narrows, realizing that Lest's words hold a deeper truth. With a challenging smile, she demands that Lest prove his capabilities to her. Lest smirks back, confidently accepting her challenge as his master. Later, in the courtyard, Lest stands opposite his brothers, preparing for the duel. The twins notice Lest's wooden sword, remarking that he must truly be their master's student. Lest quietly examines the wooden weapon he received from Elna. In stark contrast, his brothers draw their combat-ready weapons, a dagger and a sword. The Duke shouts that this duel is to prove Lest's claim, and Lest calmly agrees. Internally, Lest believes he can win because of a new power he gained through time. He considers his high stats and his wind magic, which he visualizes swirling in his hand. Despite this, he decides not to use wind magic, wanting to keep time's power hidden for now. A small smile plays on his lips as he thinks that wind magic isn't his only trump card. With everyone in position, Elna officially declares the start of the duel. One of the twins immediately lunges forward, yelling at the. He declares that he alone is more than enough to handle Lest as their blades are about to meet. Lest acknowledges his brother's speed but remains thoroughly unimpressed. Suddenly, he deflects attacks from both twins at once, shocking them completely. One of the twins stares in utter disbelief, his eyes wide with shock. Confused and angry, he shouts, questioning how Lest is defending so easily. His brother realizes with frustration that Lest has parried every single one of his strikes. In response, the other twin roars and raises his great sword for a powerful downward blow. He screams, vowing to finish Lest right then and there with this single attack. Lest retorts, goading him about how a wooden sword could possibly block a steel greatsword. As the greatsword descends, his brother yells that he will shatter Lest's wooden weapon. However, a confident smirk crosses Lest's face as he prepares to reveal his trump card. Their weapons collide, and Lest's magically infused sword completely stops the steel greatsword. Stunned, his brother demands to know how a mere toy sword blocked his full-powered strike. Lest cheerfully explains he used an applied magic technique called manhwa. This technique involves infusing magic into an object's structure to drastically increase its strength. He then taunts his brother, saying it's likely beyond his simple understanding. Hearing this, the twin grits his teeth in pure rage and humiliation. Lest recalls that manhwa was a versatile skill for vanguard classes in the game. Through his tireless daily training, he had already mastered the required magic control for it. Combined with his new power from time, he could finally use it effectively in a real fight. His brother strains against him, muttering in frustration at his own powerlessness. Lest smirks, noting this was also made possible by time's power. Furthermore, he reveals he is using a physical enhancement skill simultaneously. His brother realizes with a grimace that Lest now surpasses him completely. The force of Lest's push sends him stumbling backward across the courtyard. He digs his heels in, struggling to regain his footing against Lest. Enraged, both twins question how a failure like Lest possesses such power. In response, a confident, almost mocking smile spreads across Lest's face. He straightens up, calmly announcing that it is now his turn to attack. With a shout, Lest closes the distance and swings his sword down hard. A maniacal grin appears as he overwhelms his brother's defense. The twin stares back, his eyes wide with utter shock and disbelief. Their swords meet with a brilliant flash of magical energy. As Lest presses his attack, his brother is pushed back yet again. Suddenly, Lest's wooden sword breaks through and strikes him square in the chest. The powerful blow sends the twin flying backward through the air. He lands hard on the ground, gasping for air in agony. Seeing this, the other twin screams in rage and charges forward. Lest simply ducks under the wild swing, calling the attack sloppy. He then counters, striking his opponent and noting his posture is too high. The second twin staggers, clutching his side in pain and defeat. With both brothers down, Lest smirks and asks what's wrong. Declaring the fight has just begun, he easily deflects their renewed assault. From the sidelines, their father gasps in disbelief, questioning how Lest possesses such movement. Similarly, his mother screams that this must all be some kind of mistake. Time watches the lopsided battle from afar, remaining silent as the twins are overwhelmed. She observes that his growth rate in the last month has been abnormal, far exceeding common sense. Lest, in turn, glances at Time, sensing something about her he can't quite see through. Refusing to give up, the twins declare they still have a trump card to play. Time thinks to herself that Lest must overcome this unexpected power to move forward. Meanwhile, Lest considers his victory conditions, realizing he needs to knock them unconscious. With a fierce glint in his eye, he resolves to thoroughly demonstrate his superior power. One of the twins grits his teeth, preparing himself for their next move. The other twin mirrors his expression, focusing his resolve for the coming attack. Suddenly, their wooden weapons transform, one becoming a broadsword and the other a dagger. Lest immediately senses the shift in the atmosphere, his expression growing serious. Enraged, the twins scream that they were just going easy on their foolish brother until now. Lest's eyes narrow slightly, recognizing what he is about to face. One of the twins shouts for Lest to be shattered into pieces. At the same time, the other brother yells that he will be cut down. The broadsword-wielding twin raises his weapon, activating the art Rock Mountain Crusher. Simultaneously, the dagger-wielding twin unleashes his art High-Speed Dance. Lest recognizes these as arts, specifically dedicated skills unique to their weapons. He understands that even with second sight, he can't match their combined power and speed. Knowing he'll be overwhelmed if this continues, Lest realizes he's at a disadvantage. He notes this is the decisive difference between those with combat skills and those without. However, with a slight smirk, he decides it's time to use his own special skill. Taking a stance, Les prepares to reveal his own dedicated art. He activates wind magic, causing it to envelop his wooden sword. This magic combines with his high-speed swing to create unparalleled sharpness. With a focused gaze, Les prepares to name his technique. He unleashes his art, Tenso, as his blade appears to transform. His single sword clashes against the attacks from both of his brothers. The twins bring their weapons down in a combined attack called Wind Sever. To their shock, Les easily blocks their assault with his one blade. As he holds them back, a faint, confident smile plays on his lips. One twin looks up in confusion as his enchanted daggers shatter upon impact. The other brother stares in disbelief as his broadsword also breaks apart. Their empowered weapons fall to the ground in pieces with a loud clatter. Both twins can only stare with wide, terrified eyes at the outcome. Observing from the side, their father shouts that it's impossible to cut steel with a wooden sword. The twins stare up from the ground, utterly baffled by how a wooden sword defeated them. One brother can only look on in terror, sweating profusely. The other twin is equally stunned, unable to form a coherent thought. As they cower on the ground, Les stands over them, his wooden sword held ready. He then coolly asks his brothers if they wish to continue the fight. Completely intimidated, the twins simply tremble in fear, unable to respond. Watching from the sidelines, their parents also look on in complete disbelief. Elmello, observing the outcome, calmly announces that this is the end of the duel. With a smug look, she declares Les the winner due to his brother's forfeit. Les stands tall and victorious as Elmello makes the official announcement. Their mother Zilla screams that it's impossible for her perfect sons to lose. In response, Elmello swiftly incapacitates Zilla with a chop to the neck. A maid rushes forward to catch the unconscious woman as the Marquis looks on. Elmello then turns to the Marquis, asking if he accepts the result. With his head hung low, he grits his teeth and admits that Les is the winner. Les turns his head slightly, observing the exchange between his father and the knight. The Marquis clenches his jaw, his eyes filled with rage and humiliation. Frustrated, he turns and storms away from the dueling grounds. The twins quickly get to their feet, chasing after their father and calling for him to wait. Once they are gone, Elmello turns to Les, acknowledging his efforts for now. Elmello tells Les that while she doubted him, she was honestly surprised by the result. With a slight smile, she mentions that his brothers are her disciples too. She then praises Les for a job well done, though she's curious about his final move. Les starts to sweat, realizing she must have noticed the subtle wind magic he used. Elmello reassures him she won't press the issue, but asks for one more explanation. She asks if he had a contingency plan besides destroying his brother's weapons. Stammering, Les admits he couldn't have fully blocked their arts without using his thread arts. A flashback shows his twin brothers bringing their swords down on him simultaneously. In the past moment, Les expertly redirects one brother's sword into the other's attack. Les explains his plan was to use their own strength against them to avoid serious injury. He recalls his father's anger, knowing he needed a decisive victory to avoid further trouble. He explains that for this reason, he chose to destroy their weapons. A quick visual shows the brothers' swords shattering as they collide with each other. Elmello grins, remarking that it seems Les saw through her intentions as well. Les smiles nervously, admitting he still can't quite match her prowess. She beams with pride, replying with a simple, "Of course." With a wide, joyful laugh, she approaches him. She then roughly ruffles his hair, declaring that she is his master after all. Some time later, Les looks up at the Albion mansion, reflecting on his newly earned position. He sits in a massive, opulent bedroom, marveling at the living space he has finally secured. As Les sits, a portal opens, revealing his wolf familiar Geralt in a field, whom he greets. The wolf, now enormous, excitedly rushes towards a startled Les. Geralt then bursts through the portal into Les' room, excitedly getting in his face. Struggling under the wolf's immense size, Les sweats and agrees to go with him. Les steps through the portal into the field, followed closely by the now small Geralt. He gives the giant wolf a warm hug, thanking him for his assistance. Les then explains that it was thanks to Geralt's wind magic that he won. Though he's pleased with his duel victory, he now needs to consider his future. In response, Geralt lets out a content and happy bark. Suddenly, a system window appears, warning him that his taming limit has been reached. The message clarifies that to tame another creature, he must first raise this limit. Les acknowledges that this is indeed his current major obstacle. Leaning against Geralt, he considers that he needs to level up to tame more monsters. He recalls how the game's version of Lest only managed to tame about 5 creatures. Determined, he decides that unlike his game counterpart, he must level up himself. He reflects that for efficient growth, he needs to gain experience from defeating monsters. A quick graphic displays his current party members, Lest, Estel, and Geralt. Lest believes this team can handle most things, but he wants to fight in the Ars forest. Considering his recent commotion, he worries he might not be permitted to enter the forest. With a determined smile, he vows that the next creature he tames will absolutely be that one. His target resides deep within the Ars forest, a specific monster soaring high above some ancient ruins, and as he dozes off beside Geralt, his predicament is unexpectedly resolved. As elsewhere, his father reflects on the day Les received the tame skill, which he considered a completely useless failure of a skill, leading him to immediately send out a notice removing Les as the next heir, though he had hoped that showing his own strength would inspire his son instead. However, Les grew into a powerful tamer and even caught the first princess's attention, leaving his father to angrily wonder how things ended up this way. In his study, he worries that his decision was a mistake but must avoid one outcome. He then slams his desk, refusing to accept a tamer leading the proud Albion family, resolving that Les must prove he isn't worthy to be the heir. He believes his eldest son, a sword saint, is the only one fit to lead the family's future. Looking out the window, he muses that the important thing is how to cast Les aside, pondering if there's any good method to achieve this goal. Just then, he spots Les walking outside, and an idea suddenly strikes him. He schemes to orchestrate a situation where Les will have to throw his own life away. With a sinister smile, he decides to use the upcoming events in the Ars forest. Consequently, early the next morning, Les stands before his father in his office, where he is stunned by an order to investigate the mist of the Ars forest. Les considers the benefits of leveling up while questioning the suspicious motives behind his father's sudden command. Gatto explains that the appearance of a gale wolf in shallow waters indicates a dangerous abnormality within the forest. Standing over his desk, the Lord grants Les special permission to investigate the restricted area despite his academy status. Les remains skeptical of the proposal, certain that his father is already well aware of the forest's current state. The elder Albion warns of B-rank monsters lurking in the shadows that far surpass the strength of previous foes. A dark smirk creeps onto Gatto's face as he anticipates Lest's inevitable failure against the forest's true terrors. He silently perfects his scheme to blame the potential tragedy on his son's own reckless overconfidence and arrogance. Observing his father's transparent acting, Les decides to ignore the underlying malice to focus on the mission instead. His eyes sharpen with intense focus as he realizes the significance of receiving official permission to enter. Les resolves to seize this rare opportunity to grow stronger regardless of the sinister intent behind the order. Gatto erupts with a theatrical display of joy, loudly questioning if his son truly intends to accept the task. While the father plays the role of a proud parent, Les inwardly notes the sheer falsehood of the performance. Determined to begin immediately, the young noble expresses his eagerness to depart for the Ars forest without delay. The view shifts to the dense canopy of the woods as the official exploration finally gets underway. A mental map reveals the forest's 3 distinct zones, showing Lest's current assignment in the relatively safe shallow layer. Wandering through the peaceful greenery, he assumes his father chose the easiest area to avoid drawing any suspicion. Recalling his previous encounter, Lest approaches a shimmering rift in space that manifests among the tall white trees. He calls out to his companion, prompting the massive gale wolf to emerge from the glowing spatial portal. Geralt immediately pounces on his master in a playful greeting as they prepare for their very first hunt together. The enormous creature nuzzles against Les while they share a brief moment of bonding before venturing deeper into the mist. Lest and Geralt encounter a group of goblins and a large hobgoblin blocking their path through the woods. The massive gale wolf leaps into action, effortlessly shredding through the small monsters with his superior speed. Lest observes the carnage from the side, reflecting on how his tame skill significantly buffs his monster's base stats. Not wanting to be left behind, the young noble parries a goblin's club with a swift flick of his wooden sword. He follows up with a low, spinning strike that carves through his opponent's defenses with unexpected lethality. A sudden sensation of danger causes Les to pause and look up toward the dense canopy above. He narrowly dodges a high-speed projectile by leaning his body back just as a screech echoes through the trees. A glowing creature descends from the sky, its wings wreathed in shimmering light as it targets the intruders. A high D-rank fire bird reveals itself, flapping its fiery wings while maintaining a safe distance in the air. Les smirks at the challenge, knowing exactly how to handle a flying enemy that thinks it is out of reach. He concentrates mana into his palm, forming a concentrated sphere of swirling air to counter the avian beast. With a sharp cry, he unleashes a powerful wind shot that streaks toward the fire bird with pinpoint accuracy. The magical projectile strikes true, trapping the monster in a violent whirlwind that consumes its remaining health. Immediately after the kill, a shower of white sparks descends upon Les as a mysterious energy fills his soul. He stands tall amidst the dissipating light, marveling at the sudden feeling of lightness and increased physical power. Realizing he has achieved a level up, he notes that dealing the finishing blow grants him full experience points. Les approaches Geralt and explains that their partnership allows them to grow much faster than hunting alone. They continue their training deep within the forest where Les practices casting massive tornadoes to refine his wind magic. A look of pure satisfaction crosses his face as he realizes his growth rate is far exceeding the game's original logic. 1 week later, the duo continues to dominate the Ars forest by flawlessly hunting every monster that crosses their path. Les effortlessly slays a powerful horned monster, proving his current strength is far beyond its reach. He takes a moment to catch his breath, noting his significant level progress over the past week. Looking at the fallen beast, he realizes that lower-level monsters no longer provide enough experience points. The young noble contemplates if he should venture into the forest's middle layer without official permission. To his surprise, Gatto summons him to the study and grants permission to investigate deeper areas. Les reacts with shock at the impeccable timing of his mentor's order to expand the search. He clarifies that the middle layer contains much stronger foes while Gatto voices his high expectations. With a slight sweat on his brow, Les formally accepts the dangerous new assignment from Gatto. Bright and early the following morning, the duo sets off with high spirits toward the inner woods. They immediately encounter a massive C-rank carnivorous plant that lunges at them with snapping, jagged maws. Les remains completely unfazed, his sharp gaze fixed on the threat while evaluating its combat potential. He skillfully evades a lethal bite, realizing that his personal skill has already surpassed B-rank status. After the battle, he affectionately praises Geralt for their steady and efficient leveling pace in this zone. Another week of intensive training passes as they continue to dominate the forest's increasingly difficult inhabitants. A colossal cyclops suddenly emerges from the foliage, towering over Les with a massive wooden club raised. The ground trembles as the one-eyed giant swings its weapon, creating a violent impact that shakes the trees. Recognizing a worthy opponent, Les calls out to Geralt to prepare for a serious life-or-death confrontation. The Gale Wolf responds with a fierce baring of teeth, fully intent on tearing into their huge enemy. Dust and debris fill the air as the two combatants size each other up for the next move. Les thrusts his hand forward and screams the name of his magic to unleash a blinding wind shot. The Cyclops' massive eye dilates as it focuses intensely on the small human challenger. Les responds with a confident smirk, his eyes reflecting a keen readiness for the kill. Geralt leaps forward to sink his teeth into the giant's arm, creating the perfect opening. Stunned by the sudden coordinated assault, the monster's single eye bulges in sheer disbelief. Seizing the opportunity, Les delivers a swift and punishing blow to the creature's midsection. Wind begins to swirl violently around Les' blade as he takes a low, offensive stance. He executes a devastating slash that carves through the Cyclops' thick hide with pressurized air. The behemoth lets out a guttural snarl, its jaw tightening as it endures the stinging injury. Light begins to gather within the monster's pupil, signaling the start of a dangerous counter-mechanism. Les observes the energy build up from a distance and realizes the giant is charging a beam. Recognizing the legendary I-beam's skill, he remains calm despite the impending high-output attack. A searing ray of energy erupts from the Cyclops' eye, aiming directly at the young noble. Instead of dodging, Les squares his shoulders and prepares to meet the beam head-on. He decides to use this powerful foe as a literal test subject for his newest technique. The concentrated beam of light surges forward, illuminating the forest with a blinding white glare. With a fierce command, Les initiates his own magic to counter the incoming projectile. He unleashes a massive cyclone blast that collides with the beam in a violent explosion. Swirling currents of wind wrestle against the magical energy, creating a chaotic vortex of power. Putting every ounce of his strength into the move, Les roars as he forces his way through. The sharp point of his wind-infused attack pierces the beam and closes in on the giant's eye. Les vaults high into the air, his blade ready for a final strike against the monster. The Cyclops recoils in agony, clutching its wounded eye as it staggers backward. Meanwhile, Geralt lets out a thunderous howl that echoes through the dense woods. Blood sprays through the air as the wolf continues its relentless pursuit of the beast. A devastating shockwave ripples outward from the point of impact. Unable to withstand the pressure, the giant creature finally collapses to the ground. Les takes a moment to catch his breath, feeling the weight of the battle lift. He offers Geralt a warm smile and a victory pat on his soft fur. Suddenly, a bright light envelopes Les as he notices a level-up notification. His eyes widen in surprise at the unexpected timing of the advancement. A floating text box confirms that his level has reached the required value. The system updates his taming limit, increasing his capacity to 2 monsters. Les pumps his fist with joy, thrilled by the newfound potential for growth. He immediately begins planning his next move, targeting a legendary creature in the deep forest. The young noble tells Geralt to rest well before they face their strongest opponent yet. A look of intense determination crosses his face as he prepares for the coming trial. Narration highlights the existence of a mythical being spoken of in local legends. The silhouette of a majestic dragon soars across the bright, sun-drenched sky. The following day, Les and Geralt venture deeper into the woods without official permission. He easily cleaves through a B-rank monster while advancing toward the forest's hidden depths. Les and Geralt finally arrive at their destination deep within the woods. The young noble plants his feet firmly on the overgrown grassy plains. He looks ahead with a confident smirk while Geralt bares his sharp fangs. A massive, ruined stone cathedral looms in the distance under the open sky. Both companions suddenly react with alarm as a powerful force strikes the area. A blinding pillar of energy descends from the heavens onto the ancient ruins. Les calls out in shock as a dark vortex begins to swirl violently. The presence of a legendary black dragon manifests through the chaotic energy. The formidable beast lets out a thunderous screech while soaring into the air. Les maintains a combat stance as the dragon circles high above the cathedral. He admits the creature's power is truly overwhelming despite its youthful appearance. The dragon reveals its lethal jaws as it observes the intruders from above. It perches itself atop the ruined stone tower, staring down at Les. A vision of the past shows the dragon laying waste to a city. People scream and flee in terror as buildings crumble under a fiery breath. The legendary creature sits upon a burning spire while looking over the destruction. The memory fades to the dragon lying defeated and dying on the ground. It rests motionless in the field as the narrator explains its tragic end. The perspective shifts to a quiet town by a river, signifying peaceful times. Back in the clearing, Les and Geralt approach the gargantuan creature with caution. Les narrows his eyes with intense determination as he prepares for the hunt. While the black dragon's intimidating presence dominates the surrounding atmosphere, the young noble reflects on the rare opportunity to face such a beast. Observing the legendary creature as it radiates a terrifying amount of mana, the dragon shifts its weight atop the stone tower while watching its prey. Drawing his sword, Les stands firm beside the giant wolf Geralt. He offers a challenging smirk toward the beast perched high above them. The dragon responds by beating its wings and creating a powerful draft. It takes to the sky, circling the ruined cathedral with predatory grace. Les feels the ground shake from the sheer intensity of the dragon's aura. Despite the pressure, he maintains his composure and a defiant grin. The beast's glowing eyes fixate on the two warriors below. Les calls out to Geralt as they both let out a spirited battle cry. He plants his feet and prepares to unleash a technique to ground the dragon. Swinging his blade in a wide arc, he conjures a spiraling wind. Geralt lunges forward while baring his teeth in a savage howl. A colossal cyclone erupts from the sword strike, tearing through the air. The blast of wind reaches the dragon, buffeting its massive frame. The dragon roars as it fights to stay airborne amidst the gale. Les and Geralt remain vigilant, waiting to see if their attack succeeded. Les stares in disbelief as his powerful wind attack is neutralized with ease. He watches the black dragon ascend while acknowledging its overwhelming presence in the sky. Despite the intimidation, a confident smirk returns to his face as he calculates his next move. Planting his feet firmly against the ground, he prepares to propel himself toward the beast. The dragon opens its maw and charges a sphere of condensed, dark mana. Noticing the build-up, Les realizes a devastating breath attack is imminent. A destructive beam of energy erupts from the dragon's mouth, targeting the young noble. He stays focused and composed even as the deadly light closes the distance. A massive explosion of mana rocks the area as Les narrowly evades the direct hit. Leaping through the chaos, he maintains his resolve to take the fight to the air. He activates a specialized wind magic to grant himself the ability to fly. Soaring through the clouds, he closes the distance between himself and the dragon's head. Les combines physical enhancement with a mana-filling technique to empower his blade. He multiplies the effectiveness of his techniques to deliver a decisive aerial strike. The blade descends with terrifying speed, cutting through the air with divine force. He triggers a gravity spell at the moment of impact to maximize the crushing weight. The dragon is hammered out of the sky and slammed violently into the earth, landing back on solid ground, lest hands tremble from the sheer effort of the strike. He peers through the rising dust, knowing the legendary beast won't stay down for long. Calling out to Geralt, he orders a relentless follow-up attack to maintain their advantage. Geralt the wolf's eye narrows as he prepares to strike. The massive wolf lunges forward with a powerful claw swipe. The dragon easily deflects the blow, leaving Geralt visibly sweating from the exertion. Les lands gracefully as Geralt retreats a few paces to regroup. Les smirks while standing shoulder to shoulder with his giant lupin companion. The black dragon stands its ground, exuding an aura of absolute dominance. Les prepares his blade while facing the towering beast in the clearing. The dragon lets out a low, vibrating growl from deep within its throat. Les taunts the monster with a daring smile, unaffected by the pressure. He tells himself that the previous exchange was merely a formal greeting. The young noble raises his sword, declaring that the real battle begins now. A massive energy slash tears through the air with incredible speed. Les and Geralt coordinate their movements to pressure the dragon on the ground. The dragon's glowing eyes reflect its decision to abandon flight for total terrestrial combat. It unleashes its full power, roaring as it focuses its strength on the surface. Les slides across the grass, narrowly dodging a devastating physical swipe from the beast. Sparks fly and shockwaves ripple through the air as blades and claws clash. He maneuvers beneath the dragon's head, striking at its vulnerable neck with precision. The dragon snaps its jaws at Les, forcing him to keep a high-speed pace. He refuses to let this opportunity slip by, his eyes burning with intense determination. The black dragon charges forward with its wings spread wide. Les stands his ground alongside Geralt, bracing for the impact. The young noble focuses his gaze, sharpening his senses to the maximum. He tightens his grip on the wooden practice sword until his knuckles turn white. A massive black limb sweeps across the clearing with destructive force. Les leaps high into the air and slams his blade against the monster's snout. Sweat beads on his forehead as he lands, analyzing the beast's movements. The dragon looms over the ruins, its massive frame blotting out the sun. It lunges again with terrifying speed, tearing up the earth beneath its claws. Les shouts a command to Geralt, urging his companion to strike with everything. The beast spins around, unleashing a devastating circular strike that shakes the air. However, a sudden sense of unease washes over Les as he watches the creature. The dragon glares back, though its ferocious strikes seem curiously misplaced. He realizes that the monster isn't actually aiming to kill them with its blows. It unleashes a blinding breath attack that forces Les to leap for cover. His eyes widen as he discovers the true intention behind the dragon's pattern. The black beast tilts its head back and lets out a soul-shaking roar. A dark, concentrated vortex of energy begins to swirl within its gaping maw. Les stares in disbelief as the intensity of the gathering magic spikes. A massive explosion of light consumes the battlefield in a blinding flash. The black dragon unhinges its jaw, preparing to unleash a devastating breath attack. A blinding orb of energy gathers as a warning to evade flashes through Les' mind. His pupils dilate while he processes the overwhelming danger emanating from the beast. Les remains stationary before the expanding light as Geralt watches in panicked confusion. The dragon stares down with piercing yellow eyes, focusing its immense power. Through the sweat and pressure, the young noble sharpens his resolve. He grits his teeth as a certain realization about the monster's nature clicks. Standing firm with his practiced sword, he contemplates the true essence of taming. He realizes that relying on brute strength alone will never be enough. The dragon releases the massive torrent of magic directly at the defenseless boy. Les braces himself as the light washes over his face with intense heat. He disappears completely within the heart of the brilliant magical explosion. Shielding his face, he endures the searing temperature radiating from the blast. He feels the sheer, abnormal volume of magic swirling violently around him. A white void consumes everything as he wonders if his gamble was a mistake. The smoke clears to reveal Les standing alone in the center of a crater. He exhales slowly, his body trembling slightly from the near-death experience. Geralt lets out a startled cry, unable to believe his master is still alive. The black dragon looms over him in silence, its hostile intent finally subsiding. Les lets out a long sigh of relief, knowing his theory has been proven correct. Les realizes the dragon never truly intended to harm him or Geralt, noting that the previous flurry of attacks was purely a deceptive show of force. He theorizes that even the massive breath attack was a calculated part of a test, confirming his suspicion as he stands completely unscathed before the giant beast. He explains how the dragon cleverly hollowed out the center of the magical blast, recognizing such advanced mana manipulation as the hallmark of the king of magic. A moment of realization strikes as he ponders the true intention behind this trial. A status window appears detailing the dragon's deep respect for his unwavering pride. The system presents a formal prompt to officially tame the legendary creature. Looking at the screen, he realizes the guardian was searching for a worthy partner. He understands that the beast refuses to use its power to harm the innocent. A confident smile spreads across his face as he acknowledges the monster's noble heart. With an open palm, he offers his friendship to the powerful creature. The dragon stares back intently, weighing the sincerity in the young noble's eyes. It slowly bows its massive head in a sign of submission and mutual respect. Les softly speaks to the beast, welcoming it into his service. He reaches out to make physical contact, finalizing the pact between them. He asks the dragon to join him in the battles that lie ahead. A sudden surge of blinding magical light erupts from where they touch. Les gasps in astonishment as the overwhelming power of the contract consumes the area. Les feels a massive surge of mana flooding into his body, heightening his senses to a divine level. Realizing that this intense spiritual connection is the true essence of taming a king of magic, a system notification announces the successful contract and the transfer of a portion of the dragon's power. The interface details the dragon's blessing trait, providing total status ailment resistance and expert mana manipulation. He smiles at the additional acquisition of the miniaturization skill earned through his second successful tame. Looking at the dragon, he contemplates its innate skills and wonders why certain abilities weren't transferred. He deduces that the young creature likely hasn't mastered its more conceptual powers quite yet. Thinking about their future, he grows exhilarated by the sheer potential of the strength they will gain. He tightens his fist with renewed purpose, feeling the weight of the new bond in his soul. Turning to the beast, he declares that it requires a name befitting its majesty. He ponders several choices, wanting to avoid anything too common or simplistic for such a legendary creature. A name finally comes to him, and he asks the black dragon if it likes being called Noir. The dragon bellows a thunderous roar into the sky, seemingly accepting the name with grand enthusiasm. Les watches with a warm expression, pleased that his new partner approves of the designation. Geralt watches the bonding moment from the side, looking slightly left out of the celebration. Suddenly, the wolf leaps forward with a loud bark to remind Les of his presence. Les chuckles while patting Geralt, acknowledging that this success was only possible thanks to the wolf's assistance. He looks ahead with a determined glint in his eyes, promising to achieve greatness with his companions. Geralt meets his gaze with sharp focus, signaling his readiness for whatever trials come next. The trio stands together as a formidable unit amidst the sun-drenched plains and ancient ruins. Les stands between his two massive companions, remarking that they have successfully completed their primary objective. He gestures toward the horizon while pondering the use of a spatial dwelling to house his companions. Realizing that Noir's current size is too conspicuous, he decides to utilize his newly acquired miniaturization skill. The dragon lets out a soft cry, prompting Les to ask if the creature prefers remaining in this territory. The black dragon nods its head firmly, confirming its desire to stay and watch over the ancient ruins. Les recalls a specific detail from his past game knowledge regarding the dragon's original role in this land. He remembers that the Forest of Alst naturally attracts malevolent mana and powerful monsters. Thinking of how demons from the underworld are drawn to such dense concentrations of negative energy, he deduces that Noir's true purpose was to act as a guardian, purifying the area to prevent demon summonings. Understanding the dragon's noble duty, Les smiles and gives his companion permission to continue its vigil. He instructs the dragon to protect everyone here while maintaining their unbreakable spiritual connection. Gently stroking the dragon's snout, he asks if it will still lend him its power whenever necessary. The dragon spreads its massive wings in agreement, reaffirming the path that links tamer and beast. As they prepare to depart, Les reflects on how they can sense each other's danger through their bond. He notes that as his taming count increases, he will eventually gain the skill to summon them instantly. For now, he is satisfied with the dragon's blessing and begins the long trek home with Geralt. Curious about the limits of his magic, he asks the large wolf for permission to test miniaturization. With a sudden burst of magical smoke, the massive wolf transforms into a tiny, fluffy version of himself. Les joyfully lifts the small creature into the air, overwhelmed by how adorable Geralt looks in this form. Holding his miniature partner high, he realizes that this compact size will make living in the mansion much easier. Small Geralt lets out an aggressive bark as something dangerous approaches. Les' eyes widen as he senses a sudden, malevolent presence nearby. A monstrous, winged creature abruptly manifests directly in front of the startled noble. Sweating from the sudden tension, he realizes they are being targeted by a formidable foe. The beast swings its massive claws with lethal speed, forcing an immediate reaction. Holding his miniature partner tightly, Les leaps backward to avoid the initial strike. A terrifying gargoyle towers over them, its muscles tensed and wings spread wide. He identifies the creature as a B-rank threat with power comparable to a dragon. The monster lunges forward again, intent on crushing its smaller opponents under its weight. Narrowly dodging a horizontal swipe, Les realizes that outrunning such a fast enemy is impossible. He quickly tosses the tiny Garrel into the air toward the attacking beast. The small wolf lands deftly on the gargoyle's shoulder, catching the monster off guard. Instantly releasing the miniaturization skill, Garrel returns to full size and delivers a heavy blow. The massive wolf snaps his powerful jaws as he drives the gargoyle backward. Garrel unleashes a devastating cyclone blast that swirls around the winged adversary. After landing safely, the wolf turns his attention back to the resilient monster. The gargoyle recovers quickly, facing its canine opponent with renewed hostility. Les notes that while the beast resists physical attacks, it is vulnerable to magic. He asks Garrel to distract the monster while he prepares a decisive spell. Channeling his mana, Les generates a violent vortex of wind to finish the fight. Les feels a strange sensation as he molds his mana with unexpected ease. He realizes the dragon's blessing has granted him advanced magic manipulation skills. He focuses on refining the swirling wind energy between his palms into a concentrated drill. Meanwhile, Garrel continues to engage the gargoyle to keep its attention away from his master. The wolf nimbly evades a strike while the monster remains fixated on the beastly opponent. Standing his ground, the young noble stabilizes the massive vortex of wind for a final strike. Sensing the immense danger, the gargoyle turns its focus back to the human caster with a snarl. He quickly commands Garrel to miniaturize so the wolf can escape the area of effect. The tiny companion scampers away just as the boy prepares to release his high-level magic. The devastating arrow burst spell manifests in a massive circle of destruction before him. A high-intensity beam of concentrated wind shoots through the air with unstoppable force. The spiral energy collides with the gargoyle and shreds its stone-like hide upon impact. Garrel watches from a safe distance as the massive B-rank creature is completely overwhelmed. Les gasps in shock at the sheer destructive scale of his improved wind arts. A massive cloud of dust and debris erupts from the impact site deep within the forest. Standing amidst the settling smoke, the young man stares at the clearing left by his power. He contemplates how his contracts with his companions have exponentially boosted his internal mana. A confident smile crosses his face as he acknowledges the immense strength he now wields. He praises Garrel for the hard work while the little wolf yaps happily at his side. Looking down at his hand, he reflects on the combined progress of his training and magic. Clenching his hand, Les resolves to continue his journey toward becoming the strongest. Standing amidst the sun-dappled trees, he prepares for the next phase of his life with Garrel. Later at the Albion estate, formal greetings are exchanged between visiting royalty and the household staff. Princess Charlotte beams with a radiant expression during the pleasant outdoor encounter. Observing the high-status interaction, the head of the house maintains a polite but strained smile. As a maid presents a gift, Les watches the unfolding diplomatic scene with a quiet intensity. Charlotte maintains her graceful composure while reflecting on the promise of future training sessions. Suddenly, the twin brothers interrupt with overly enthusiastic invitations for a private tea party. They laugh boisterously while attempting to curry favor with the princess through forced charisma. Watching from a short distance, Les grows increasingly annoyed by his brother's transparent motives. Charlotte politely declines their offer, explaining her schedule is already committed to training with Les. The twins seethe with visible frustration as they realize their attempts to intervene have failed. Moving away from the awkward encounter, Les prepares to lead Charlotte toward the training area. The group arrives at a sprawling stone courtyard designated for high-level martial arts practice. Charlotte suddenly stops and confronts him about his overly formal way of addressing her. She demands he use her nickname as previously agreed, leaving the young man momentarily flustered. The attending maid clarifies that the princess expects a more casual bond between sword friends. Les looks on with a skeptical gaze, realizing the social complexities of their new arrangement. After he finally relents and calls her Charlo, she breaks into a joyful and satisfied laugh. Drawing their practice weapons, the two face each other to begin their scheduled sparring session. Charlo brandishes her training sword with a bright smile, praising Les' skill, while Les quietly reflects on the unfair circumstances of his previous duel with his brothers. Charlotte declares her intent to prove the results of her intense 2-week training regimen, meeting her challenge with a sharp grin. Lest welcomes the chance to see her progress. Nearby, the attending maid watches the two with a silent and expectant gaze. A verbal signal echoes through the courtyard, officially marking the start of their duel. Immediately, Charlotte lunges forward with a spirited shout, her blade cutting through the air. She closes the distance rapidly, launching a fierce overhead strike against the young master. Blocking the blow with effortless precision, Lest acknowledges the sharpness of her offensive maneuver. The two exchange a flurry of blows across the stone floor of the estate. Internally, Lest marvels at her talent, realizing she has already surpassed his brother's current level. Charlotte maintains her intense focus, pouring every ounce of her spirit into her swordsmanship. Shortly after, the maid calls out to signal the conclusion of their vigorous sparring match. Completely drained of energy, Charlotte hunches over to catch her breath while Lest observes. She admits her frustration, feeling as though the gap between them has actually widened. Noticing her sudden dejection, Lest attempts to find the right words to encourage her. She remains quiet for a moment, contemplating the immense power Lest has gained so quickly. Suddenly, Charlotte erupts with new determination, begging Lest to reveal the secrets of his training. Her eyes sparkle with renewed vigor as she refuses to let her spirit be broken. Lest ponders the request, weighing the risks of sharing his forbidden knowledge with the young princess. Lest thoughtfully considers his options while Charlotte waits for him to decide on a training method. Suddenly a specific memory of a grueling late-night regimen from his past life strikes him. Offering to teach her his personal routine, Lest is met with Charlotte's immediate and eager consent. He explains the details of his 5-part system designed to maximize growth in a short time. Beginning the trial, Charlotte groans under the weight of heavy sandbags while performing core strengthening exercises. She transitions into a high-speed sprint across the stone courtyard, still clutching the heavy bags tightly. Balancing the load on her head, she struggles to maintain focus during a difficult mana refinement exercise. The watching maid expresses her sheer disbelief at the extreme intensity of the young master's daily routine. As Charlotte continues her endurance run, Lest expresses his gratitude to the maid for her assistance. Taking a moment of quiet confidence, the maid requests that Lest address her more informally by name. Despite his slight hesitation due to their age difference, Lest agrees to the closer social standing. A bright and genuine smile crosses her face as she acknowledges his kind gesture of friendship. Charlotte's voice rings out from across the field, announcing the completion of her tasks and seeking more. Congregating on the balcony, Lest realizes that the high-density training session has finished far ahead of schedule. He silently contemplates how to spend their remaining free time, briefly considering an indoor tea party. However, he quickly dismisses the idea, fearing his brothers would find an excuse to intrude and annoy them. A brilliant alternative comes to mind, and he proposes a spontaneous trip to explore the nearby town. The mere suggestion of an outing causes Charlotte's eyes to light up with pure, unbridled excitement. She joyfully accepts the invitation, prompting Lest to finalize their plans for the afternoon adventure. The pair sets their sights on the vibrant streets of the castle town situated along the flowing river. Charlotte's eyes widen in awe as she takes in the bustling town square for the first time. She gazes at the charming street vendors and lively market atmosphere with pure wonder. Lest asks if she rarely visits such places, and she admits her duties often limit her freedom. With a radiant beam, she declares her firm intention to enjoy every moment of their outing. Lest smiles warmly, clearly pleased to see her finding joy outside the castle walls. The group begins their tour of the marketplace, passing by crates filled with fresh vegetables. Stopping at a local food stall, they both enjoy skewers of savory grilled meat together. Charlotte excitedly shows off a small trinket she discovered while browsing the various merchant stalls. She leans down to greet two local children with a friendly and approachable demeanor. Lest watches her with a contented expression, reflecting on the value of their brief shared time. She points toward another interesting shop, her energy remaining high as they continue their walk. Her long hair flows gracefully behind her as she navigates through the crowded cobblestone streets. The sun catches the ornate details of her clothing while she maintains her enthusiastic pace. A bright and carefree laugh escapes her lips as she shares her excitement with him. The late afternoon light settles over the picturesque town and its quiet stone bridges. Standing near a central fountain, she expresses her deep gratitude for the wonderful day. She notes her surprise at how much the townspeople seem to respect and adore him. Lest rubs the back of his neck sheepishly while explaining his frequent informal visits to the town. She insists that earning the trust of the commoners is far more important than noble pride. Charlotte leans in with a sparkling gaze, having discovered another admirable side of his character. Lest attempts to brush off the high praise, but the maid quickly voices her total agreement. She continues to compliment him, noting that his virtue is just as impressive as his swordsmanship. The unexpected flattery leaves Lest completely flustered as he tries to hide his growing embarrassment. Suddenly, a piercing scream echoes through the town square, instantly putting the entire group on high alert. A massive orc and a menacing goblin emerge from the shadows, terrorizing the unsuspecting townspeople nearby. Lest watches in horror as monsters roam the streets, questioning how they managed to bypass the guards. The sounds of panic intensify, reflecting the immediate danger that has suddenly descended upon the peaceful town. They quickly navigate the winding cobblestone paths to locate the source of the chaos and screams. Lest grits his teeth in frustration, trying to comprehend the scale of this sudden and coordinated invasion. He realizes that the presence of the princess might be the true reason for this calculated attack. Princess Charlotte calls out in alarm, her face pale as the reality of the situation sets in. The maid looks toward Lest with a stern expression, recognizing the severity of the threat they face. She insists on splitting up so one can guard the princess while the other fights back. However, Charlotte vehemently disagrees and steps forward, stating her firm intention to join the fight herself. She argues that their survival depends on all three of them contributing to the town's defense. The maid is taken aback by the princess's sudden display of courage and unwavering resolve. Lest quickly adapts to the situation, deciding to personally oversee Charlotte's safety while they engage the enemy. The maid reluctantly agrees to the plan, entrusting the princess to Lest's capable hands before they separate. With a determined shout, Lest and Charlotte charge forward together to meet the advancing monster horde. They strike with lethal precision, cutting through the orcs and goblins in a coordinated display of martial skill. The local townspeople shout in relief that reinforcements have arrived, though they express concern over the hero's youth. Nearby, a man recognizes the young boy and calls out the name Lest in utter disbelief. Having finished her initial combat, Princess Charlotte looks back to regroup with her allies. Suddenly, a massive and terrifying monster emerges from the shadows directly behind the unsuspecting princess. The creature lunges forward with a violent strike, causing Charlotte to cry out as she barely evades. Lest grits his teeth in shock upon realizing that a powerful fawn tiger has entered the fray. He notes the beast is a dangerous C-rank threat as it looms over the cornered Charlotte. Before he can intervene, another massive tiger suddenly leaps in front of Lest to block his path. He realizes with growing frustration that the monsters are attacking with suspiciously coordinated and precise timing. Declaring the beast to be in his way, Lest prepares to strike through the immediate obstacle. He calculates the distance and fears he won't be able to reach Charlotte in time on foot. With no other choice, he decides to reveal his hidden wind magic to cross the gap instantly. Meanwhile, Charlotte maintains her composure and begins channeling a powerful energy through her sword. Her eyes narrow with intense focus as she concentrates her magical power for a single decisive strike. She suddenly shouts the name of her spell, Holy Arrow, as a beam of light pierces the monster. The divine energy strikes the fawn tiger with immense force, sending a spray of blood into the air. Lest watches the spectacle with wide eyes, stunned to see the princess wielding such potent holy magic. He reflects on how far she has come, having mastered this difficult art in a mere 2 weeks. Looking at her determined face, he truly acknowledges the incredible talent she possesses as a mage. The beast let out a final, agonizing roar as it recoils from the princess's powerful counterattack. Charlotte pauses to scan the area for any remaining threats after the explosion. She swings her sword with precision to finish off the weakened monster. The blade cuts through the beast's defenses as it lets out a cry. The massive creature falls backward and crashes onto the cobblestone street. Catching her breath, the princess takes a moment to recover from the fight. She turns to Lest with a bright smile to announce her success. Lest praises her performance while acknowledging the incredible progress she has made. A panicked maid suddenly arrives to verify that the princess is safe. Local residents cheer loudly for Lest and celebrate their deliverance from danger. A mysterious hooded figure watches the celebration from the safety of the shadows. The figure ponders the mystery of a tamer who has suddenly become powerful. A subtle and ominous smirk forms on the hidden observer's face. The stranger walks away down a quiet alley to continue their investigation. Back at the manor, a nobleman broods over the reports from the forest. He is furious that Lest returns safely every day despite the dangers. He clutches his head in frustration, unable to explain the boy's survival. A sudden interruption by a servant catches him off guard during his brooding. His face contorts in shock upon hearing news of the monster attack. The butler reports that both Lest and the princess have emerged unharmed. The nobleman remains in stunned silence as the butler promises to investigate the incident. The nobleman's anxiety grows as he realizes Lest's reputation is only increasing. Considering how the princess herself is now acting as a witness to his deeds, he leans heavily on his desk while deciding that he cannot waste any more time. His eyes narrow as he resolves to send Lest into the forest's deadliest final area. Knowing that even a sword saint would struggle to survive that treacherous territory, he remains convinced that no matter how many miracles Lest has performed, he will die. Doubts flicker briefly as he questions if his current scheme is truly enough. He decides to call upon specialized assassins to ensure the job is finished. A dark grin forms as he envisions the perfect crime without leaving any evidence. He breaks into a fit of mad laughter while blaming Lest for his own misfortune. His resentment boils over at the thought of his position being threatened by the boy. Suddenly a mysterious hooded woman appears and voices her agreement with his malice. The nobleman recoils in terror and demands to know her identity immediately. She stands calmly by the window and points out a fatal flaw in his current plan. Panic sets in as he realizes he never felt her approach the room at all. She offers him a different path while her smirk remains hidden in the shadows. His vision begins to blur as his thoughts become muddy and indistinct. The stranger leans in close to whisper suggestions directly into his failing mind. His eyes lose their focus while he succumbs to her mysterious and overwhelming influence. The hooded woman smiles with satisfaction as she takes full control of the situation. The mysterious hooded woman notes that the stage is set to expose Lest Albion's hidden secrets. She rests a hand on the nobleman's head while a sinister smile stretches across her face. The following day dawns over the expansive and quiet grounds of the Albion Manor. Charlotte expresses her disappointment that their training session must conclude earlier than expected. The departure is moved forward as a precaution against any further monster ambush attempts. A massive teleportation array begins to resonate with light for the princess's journey home. Several sorcerers concentrate their mana to maintain the demanding magical gate. Lest compares this world's transportation system to the fast travel mechanics from his favorite games. He offers a gentle smile to reassure the princess as she prepares to leave, noting that her growth in both sword and magic is already truly remarkable. Charlotte listens intently to his words of praise while reflecting on their shared time. She enthusiastically vows to become even stronger before their next inevitable meeting. Lest stands in silence on the cobblestone path while the carriage pulls away. A maid soon approaches to inform him that his father requests his immediate presence. He realizes the timing of this summons suggests a deeper motive at play. The nobleman stands by the window and commands Lest to investigate the forest's deepest core. Lest recognizes that this mission is a blatant attempt to send him into a death trap. He maintains his composure while facing the sheer magnitude of his father's open hostility. The nobleman unexpectedly claims that sending him alone would be far too dangerous. Lest is left stunned when told he will be assigned a personal guard for the mission. His father calls out, summoning the individual who will accompany Lest on his mission. The heavy wooden door creaks open to reveal a new presence entering the room. A striking woman with braided red hair and a magical staff steps forward confidently. Lest remains momentarily speechless as he takes in the sight of his assigned companion. The newcomer introduces herself as a B-rank adventurer hired to serve as his guard. Noticing his intense gaze, she flashes a sly smile and asks if something is wrong. He quickly averts his eyes and attempts to maintain a neutral expression despite his suspicions. The nobleman reiterates that this is an absolute command that cannot be refused or debated. His father claims with a stern face that this measure is purely for Lest's protection. Understanding he has no choice, Lest formalizes his acceptance of the arrangement with a bow. The adventurer expresses her delight and looks forward to their time together during the quest. Shortly after the meeting, the scene transitions to the dense foliage of the forest outskirts. About an hour later, the pair navigates through the middle layer of the Arus forest. Lest keeps a watchful eye on his companion while weighing the truth behind her hire. He finds the circumstances surrounding her sudden appearance to be highly irregular and deeply concerning. Internal monologue reveals his belief that she might be here to stage a fatal accident. A sharp glint in his eye indicates his readiness to react to any sudden betrayal. He concludes that regardless of her friendly demeanor, she is undoubtedly an enemy in disguise. The woman continues to smile brightly while Lest resolves to keep his true powers hidden. They trek deeper into the woods while noting the eerie absence of any hostile monster activity. The adventurer praises Lest's keen instincts as they continue their trek through the dense forest. She notes a sudden shift in the surrounding mana as they reach the deepest layers. Their footsteps fall silently upon the grass while they tread carefully into the unknown territory. Les hushes his companion when she speaks too loudly about the curious absence of monsters. She looks back with a confused expression, wondering why he has suddenly become so tense. Peering from behind a large trunk, Les begins counting a pack of monsters gathering ahead. His heart sinks as he identifies a powerful B-rank orc general leading the monstrous group. The massive beast stands surrounded by nearly a dozen subordinates, making a direct confrontation suicidal. Les realizes that fighting such a force without his strongest tame beasts will be difficult. He decides to act as a decoy and charges forward to draw their aggression. Love-Sen accepts her role as the primary damage dealer and prepares her offensive magic. The ground shakes as the orcs roar and lunge at the boy with primitive weapons. Les skillfully weaves through their clumsy strikes while maintaining his focus on the distraction. Behind him, the mage gathers a massive amount of fire energy at her staff's tip. He calls out for her to strike as he creates an opening among the clustered enemies. She unleashes a devastating fire javelin spell that tears through the air toward the targets. The resulting explosion engulfs several orcs, sending their pained cries echoing through the woods. Flames spread across the battlefield as the lower-ranked monsters are consumed by the magical heat. The orc general emerges from the smoke, scorched but still standing over its fallen kin. A single bloodshot eye narrows in fury as the beast prepares its deadly retaliation. The orc general lunges forward with terrifying speed, forcing the mage to brace herself. She gasps in pure terror as the massive creature's shadow looms over her. Les instantly interjects himself between them and roars a defiant challenge at the beast. A blinding explosion of energy abruptly illuminates the darkened forest canopy above. The young tamer delivers a decisive strike that carves right through the monster's flesh. Blood sprays across the grass as the defeated orc general collapses into the dirt. Love-Sen approaches her companion and offers high praise for his exceptional swordsmanship. He remains on high alert and scans the tree line for any remaining threats. The mage sheepishly avoids eye contact while asking for a brief moment of privacy. Les offers a silent nod of permission, although he seems confused by the request. He watches her disappear into the thick brush before turning his attention elsewhere. While leaning against a massive trunk, the boy takes a moment to recover his breath. Eventually, a frown deepens on his face as he realizes she has been gone too long. His pupils dilate with sudden realization when he catches a strange scent on the wind. Gazing up at the dark canopy, he notes that even the birds have stopped their singing. A sharp rustle from the shadows behind him triggers his combat instincts instantly. A monstrous A-rank ogre with pale skin and jagged horns emerges from the mist. Les yells in shock at the appearance of an area boss so far from its domain. The beast glares down with empty white eyes and a face etched with deep scars. Gripping his sword tightly, he prepares for a desperate struggle against the apex predator. Les stares in disbelief as he begins to grasp the sheer scale of the threat before him. The ogre general unleashes a devastating downward smash that sends debris flying in every direction. Barely avoiding the impact, the young tamer admits that the monster's power is truly overwhelming. He recalls his previous victory against a B-rank gargoyle to gauge the current situation's danger. Reflecting on the hierarchy of beasts, he understands that A-rank monsters occupy an entirely different league. The pale giant lunges forward with a speed that defies its massive, muscular frame. Its monstrous features twisted in a snarl, the beast exhibits a perfect balance of offense and defense. Les is sent tumbling backward as a shockwave from a near miss rattles his very bones. Recovering his footing amidst the churned-up earth, he quickly reassesses his limited options for survival. He realizes that facing such a high-level predator solo is an exercise in futility. Bracing himself against the ground, he decides to reveal a power he usually keeps hidden. A brief memory of his companion's departure flashes through his mind as he prepares his next move. With a look of grim determination, he focuses his mana to initiate a high-level summoning. He thrusts his hand forward and shouts a command to bring forth his most trusted ally. A massive, snarling wolf named Galil emerges from a glowing rift to join the fray. The duo stands united against the ogre general as it prepares for another ferocious assault. Les channels his energy into a concentrated point while Galil provides a necessary distraction. The sudden shift in the battle's momentum clearly irritates the massive, scarred beast. A powerful cyclone blast erupts directly into the ogre's face in a blinding flash of light. The young tamer flashes a confident smirk while acknowledging the monster's impressive durability. Les leaps into the air to avoid a devastating horizontal swing from the ogre general's massive blade. A powerful shockwave ripples through the surrounding forest as the beast's strike misses its mark completely. The kinetic energy from the mist attack shatters nearby trees and kicks up a massive cloud of dust. Momentarily suspended in midair, the young tamer maintains his focus while observing the giant's follow-up movements. The ogre general roars in frustration as Gallo the wolf lunges at its flank to create an opening. Gallo barks a fierce challenge and leaps toward the distracted giant with bared fangs and lethal intent. Reacting with surprising speed, the giant monster catches the wolf midair with a heavy, punishing blow. Lest's eyes widen in shock as he witnesses his trusted companion taking a direct hit from the beast. The ogre general looms over the churned earth while the tamer and his wolf struggle to recover. He reflects on how the monster's immense physical prowess is bolstered by a constant flow of mana. Narrowing his eyes, he realizes that standard physical and magical attacks will never breach that mana-reinforced skin. He decides to utilize his special enwrapment technique to imbue his blade with a layer of lethal energy. Darting forward, Les delivers a precise wind-sever strike that successfully draws blood from the monster's hide. The ogre general bellows in agonizing rage as it feels the sting of a genuine, painful wound. A faint smirk crosses the tamer's face as he confirms that his reinforced blade can pierce the giant. Huffing heavily from the exertion, the wounded giant glares down at the human who dared to hurt it. Its monstrous eye fixates on the young boy with a murderous intent that vibrates through the very air. The ogre general raises its massive weapon high above its head for a singular, crushing downward blow. Les nimbly evades the earth-shattering impact and readies his weapon while staying low to the ground. He concludes that the beast is now focused entirely on him as the intense battle continues. The ogre general stands poised in the clearing while Les observes the monster's shift in focus. Les responds with a knowing smirk, sensing that the beast has made a critical tactical mistake. Gallo's paw grips the earth firmly as the wolf prepares to launch a sudden, decisive counterattack. A tight close-up of Les's eye reveals his intense focus on the giant's every muscle twitch. The wolf leaps into the fray again, snarling fiercely to draw the monster's attention back to himself. The giant's eye bulges in shock as it realizes the wolf remains a lethal and active threat. Channeling mana into his claws, Gallo initiates a high-speed leap while activating a powerful enwrapment skill. A brilliant slash of wind energy cuts deep into the ogre general's chest, drawing even more blood. The massive beast grimaces in pain, its face contorting as it feels the sting of the wolf's strike. The force of the blows sends the ogre general stumbling backward through the shattered forest debris. Les beams with pride, impressed that his companion has already learned to utilize such advanced techniques. The clearing falls momentarily silent as the three combatants reassess their positions for the final exchange. The young tamer stares ahead with unwavering confidence, knowing the momentum of the battle has shifted. Gallo bares his fangs in a low snarl, daring the monster to look away from him again. The ogre general's mouth remains set in a grim line as its rage continues to boil over. With a thunderous roar, the wounded giant charges forward to crush both the boy and his wolf.